Brisbane housing reaches record levels. Let's have a look. Good evening, everyone. Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your hashtag not sponsored coffee, and let's check out this article from Domain about the best city in Australia and property prices reaching a fair and reasonable level that's completely acceptable for the city. Yeah, completely fair and just and reasonable. Can you tell? Can you tell there's a little bit of a bias here, guys? So there you go. Because obviously I'm a genius and bought at the exact right time. Every decision I made is pure genius. You know, I'm just like the boomers. I'm kidding, by the way, if you can't tell. So price down. Home buying hurdle nearly doubles in half a generation, everyone. First home buyers are more reliant than ever on the bank of mum and dad, and government schemes to buy a house, experts say, as they require deposits near double in the past decade. This is... Now, here's the thing. We've got a lot of arguments for how unfair this is, how unjust it is. I would argue that housing affordability needs to be addressed as a key component of a stable and prosperous society over time. And I don't think the government is the solution to it, sadly. I don't think any scheme is going to be the solution to it. In most capital cities in 2014, a 20% deposit for a typical house was $100,000 and higher in Sydney. So 2014, we're talking, okay, that's only 10 years ago. That's not that long ago. It has since blown out. So $100,000, guys. So in March 2014, $158,000 in Sydney for a deposit. That seems quite quaint, doesn't it? $325,000 this year. Melbourne, $119,000, $200,000. Brisbane, under $100,000, $93,000 for a deposit. And you've got to understand, this is the medium, so half are below and half are above. 184 now. 91,000 Adelaide. Adelaide's 180. Canberra, 114. 200,000 as well. I think the only one that's gone lower is Darwin here. Look at Hobart, guys. Look at Hobart. Shit. $65,000 to $142,000. Now, Hobart is a beautiful city. I've actually went to Launceston and Hobart for the States of Mind student architecture conference. And it was a wonderful trip. I really loved it. It was very cold, though. And they have these things, fire inside the house, you know, with a chimney. We've got them here in Queensland, but I've never actually... They're all bricked up. No one uses them anymore. I guess you don't want to pay for the cleaning. $133,000. Darwin's $114,000. So there you go, Darwin. It's the way to go, guys. A city deposit was $158,000 for the city's median house a decade ago, but has since risen above $325,000. So if you've been waiting, I mean, when were we talking about this on the channel? Probably 2018, 2019, we started discussing it. There have been people who have been waiting longer for a housing correction, sitting on the sidelines. So if you've been waiting 10 years... and your deposit requirements changed from $158,000 to $325,000. I mean, where do you think it's going to go, guys? A Melbourne buyer would have needed a deposit of $119 in 2014, but yep, $206. Brisbane, everyone. The steep deposit requirement has forced buyers to look for other ways to bridge the gap or compromise on the type or location of property they can afford. That's nothing unusual. Okay, we shouldn't be painting this as like a bad thing or a big deal or things that previous generations didn't have to do. I mean, perhaps it's my background as the first generation of Australia, first generation Australian born from immigrants. My father travelled to the other side of the world to start a life. So... many buyers in the market now earn high incomes or have access to significant deposits, with wage growth over the past 10 years at about 26%, according to the ABS. First home buyers were heavily dependent on family help and government schemes. PRD chief economist Dr. Dawatsi Mamadismo said, wages have definitely gone up, but they've not doubled or tripled. You need them to triple if they were doubled. They just meet the requirements, he said. It's not just the deposit you need to consider, it's building, inspections, insurances, and other fees. The deposit figures also do not include stamp duty. She said, it's a lady. She said some first home buyers earned too much to meet the income caps for state and federal government assistance schemes, which would allow them to buy with as little as 5% of the purchase price, and some even got in at 2%, but not enough to save a larger deposit. Yeah, you're stuck in the trap there. You're stuck in the trap. It's like you can be earning enough money and not receive any of the government assistance or programs, all of these things, but not enough to really be raking it in. You know, you're stuck. You're stuck in middle class, and now with housing getting more and more expensive, it just gets harder. They're stuck in a weird limbo. She said they're too rich for government programs, but not rich enough to pay a 20% deposit. If they did not have access to the bank of mum and dad, they were either unable to buy at all or forced to pay lender's mortgage insurance, something, she said, can come with risks. It costs you more money, particularly if there are any changes to your interest rate, she said. It can also negatively impact you if you want to refinance. Domain Chief of Research and Economics, Dr. Nicola Powell, said the data indicated that many first-home buyers were not buying with a 20% deposit, more likely taking out LMI or relying on financial help. And remember, the LMI isn't for you, the first-home buyer. It's to protect the banks. Yeah, this is it. This is why when people think it's all going to come collapsing down, you know, housing will be affordable, waiting on the sidelines to jump in. It ain't going to happen, guys. It is not going to happen in Australia. Okay? We'll get a recession and property will what? Maybe cut 20%? Whoop-de-doo. Okay? It's not going to make it any more affordable. It's just going to suck. Okay, this is the Australia we live in now. You need to either be earning a shitload of money, or you probably need to be earning a shitload of money and have both of you working at the same time in a relationship to get into the housing market. You're not going to be able to live the same quality of life, the same money, the same education level as previous generations. That's just how it is. Either that or they were buying units which had recorded lower price growth than houses in most capitals, Powell said. I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with getting a unit to get in. I had a mate, what he did is he bought down, where is it? Waterford Way. He bought a little duplex in a complex, and he used that as a springboard to get into a house. I think he paid the whole thing off really quick. He was telling me he regrets that. He wished he put more in the stock market because he's making good gains there. But it's a stepping stone. Are we still falling to the trap that your first house is like your forever dream home, the fantasy stuff? Does that still exist? Aren't you meant to, step up, build a future together? Maybe I'm just a boomer, guys. Trans boomer. Identify as a boomer, eh? First-home buyers will go with the lower end of the market. Units are much more affordable because we've been better at building units than we have done houses. Oh, I'm just thinking of the construction playlist here, looking at all the apartment disasters. Maybe, yeah, a 3-story brick walk-up. However, she said more property options needed to be built, so people were not trying to buy a home with a relatively small windfall from selling a unit. There needs to be more stepping stones for people between the unit market and the housing market. We still have a missing middle. Yes, that's... What was it doing the rounds recently in the media? There were these images of these houses so close together, I think in Western Sydney. They should just build them as townhouses. Don't even pretend to have this separation and the gap between the apartments. If you build them together, you'll have better fire separation and better acoustic separation between them. And you've got more land to get more property there. Despite this, she said units were a good investment in most cities depending on the type and location. Some units perform better than others. In our big cities, there's some real special heritage properties, but also boutique blocks with fewer units. Those are highly sought after by buyers. I think units, it's also the location. But you're going to be competing with a whole lot of people when you're buying or selling with the size of some of these complexes. Madissimo said, the one upside of prices growing at this rate was that those who did manage to buy a property were likely to see their wealth grow quickly, even if it meant having to outlay a large deposit. However, she added that it shouldn't be so difficult to buy, and that governments should strongly consider changing caps and expanding shared equity schemes. Oh no, I don't like this. To make them more accessible. Or what if we look at letting people have more access to their own money? I'd advocate for allowing people to use this portion of their superannuation to get in the housing market. And don't tell me that it'll just make housing more expensive. This is the thing, everyone. Housing is always going to get more expensive. It's not going to get cheaper. Okay? Fluctuations in the market moving up and down, whoop-de-doo. Oh, wow, you bought here as opposed to there, so you save 20%. Okay, that'll be good. You maybe have a couple $100,000 less over the period of your mortgage. But you've got to understand the cost of construction, the cost of building, the legislation requirements, the performance requirements, just the market expectations are going to continue to drive up the cost of building every single year. We're not going to see a huge crash in property. What we're sadly going to see, honestly, is a whole bunch of failed bullshit promises by the government that isn't really going to make any solutions, because it's a problem bigger than even they can handle. And we're going to see an increased divide between the property owners and those that don't own property. I don't think Australia is going to be the lucky country anymore where housing was a means to change your generational circumstances. We're going to see more segregation. I'm not arguing that that's a good thing. I'm saying it's a bad thing. I mean, how would we address it? Well, it's a challenge. Everyone wants to live in 3 cities, pretty much. 4 cities, 5 cities. We're a big country, but you don't want to live in the middle of nowhere. The government has recently raised the cap for its planned Help to Buy shared equity scheme, which has not yet passed Parliament. It has also increased the first home guarantee caps since the scheme was introduced. Oh boy. See, I take a week off and there we go. We got shared equity coming. Bloody hell. They do revise the caps, but it's based on straight numbers and not on individual circumstances. Someone might be earning what seems like a high income, but the cost of other things like childcare, taking parental leave, can mean they still can't afford a deposit. I mean, this is an interesting one, the childcare costs. I mean, we're sacrificing Rachel's potential earning income, for working full-time somewhere else if she stuck all the kids in childcare and didn't homeschool the kids, stuck them all in schooling. I don't know if it'd be worth it. You'd have to spend so much on childcare. You wouldn't get to spend any time with your kids. You'd be running back and forth from the school, dropping them off, picking them off, running around like a headless chook. Is it worth it, guys? Is it worth it? Seeing how much some people spend on childcare. And then you've got a whole industry lobbying for more government support, more handouts, more subsidies. So they tax you more and more to give it back to you again. I wonder how many people, particularly how many women, are working just for the sake of it and are not walking away with anything better in their pocket after you take account of childcare. Because you still got to drive to work, you got to get the outfits for work, you got to take lunches for work, all of these things. But yeah, it's not easy. Well, let's have a chat about this one, eh, guys? So Brisbane house prices are at a record level. Did they even cover that here? No, they didn't. This is one on deposits, but the house prices are at a record level. We'll look at that in another article. So it's not getting any easier, everyone. I remember years ago we looked at the media reporting on property price or predictions of property prices collapsing. I remember one where the RBA did modeling of what would happen based on a significant property price decline, like a 50% correction in property. And the media jumped on the headline. I talked about it because it was concerning if we saw a big collapse in property prices. Because, I mean, these prices are insane. But we can't The problem is you'll have people comparing it to an individual wage. And they'll think back to years ago when it was feasible for one person to support an entire household. But we don't want that Australia anymore. That Australia's gone. Now you both have to work. Is it worth it? Anyway, take care, guys. Have a great night. And I'll see you at the next episode of HeiseSays. Bye for now.